year and a half. I think Harry introduced the first event that we did last year, and then how we're trying to kind of continue this with a focus on the built environment, with a coalition that we're calling the Whole Life Cycle Policy Coalition for the Built Environment. And so it's called WLCP Co. And what we're trying to do is replicate the Nordic Construction Forum but on an international level. So it's quite a bold ambition, and we do invite you to join us in this. Oh, can you not hear us properly? Sorry. And so we're going to have a short presentation showing you what the coalition does and the Global ABC. So on to Mona to talk about the Global ABC.
So the Whole Life Cycle Policy Coalition is hosted by is a working group under the Global ABC. The Global ABC is the Global Alliance of Buildings and Construction, which is hosted by UNEP. As you can see here, we have quite a lot of members in the Global ABC. We bring together actors from all over the value chain. So we have 39 countries, 11 public agencies, 93 private sector enterprises and networks, and then many other partners as well that you can see on the screen. The Global ABC was founded at COP21 and is hosted by UNEP again. And the ambition for the Global ABC is to lead a zero-emission, efficient and resilient buildings and construction sector. And with that, we have 4 different aims, but we really focus on advocacy work. We work for we're hosted by the UN, and the idea is that we bring together the different actors and advocate for, the mission that we have, the vision that we have, the zero emission, efficient and resilient buildings and construction sector. And then we are also, we do a lot of tracking progress in this field. So we have an annual publication called the Buildings Global Status Report, which reports on where we are with regards to meeting the Paris commitment in the building sector. From there, we also work jointly with particular governments, depending on the different projects that we have. And we support them in setting priorities and measures based on the different conditions that they are in. And then finally, we also work with the private sector to identify priorities and strategies towards building a decarbonized and resilient sector. So with that, the whole life cycle policy is one of the sub-working groups of the material working group under the Global ABC that we've been co-leading with the Life Cycle Initiative as well as DASNES in UK. So I'll hand over to you, Mel, to take us through.
Thanks. So our aim is to amplify existing initiatives, but also to connect initiatives that are already working in this space. Because we always feel like we know everything. And every time we start working on a project, we discover there's another initiative doing something similar. So the aim is to try and have some place where this can all be brought together. And so as Mona said on the left, we've got the Secretariat hosted by the Global ABC and Life Cycle Initiative. And this is how we set it up for the moment. So we've got a core group, which meets every month, and we discuss and just track where we're all at. So you can see there's quite a lot of groups. You might be familiar with some of them. Some of them you heard from this week, such as the IGDI, the Carbon Leadership Forum are doing a lot on this space. We're co-leading this with the WBCSD, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. We also got involvement from EDGE, which is a different version of the GGNB, which is more used in emerging markets, for example. And then we have every quarter or every 2 months, we meet with a wider group, people who can't come every month, but just want to keep posted. So it's a place to present to a very wide international audience what you're doing on the topic, if you feel like you want international feedback on what you're working on. We've organized ourselves across 4 aims, which will ring quite true compared with everything we've said this week. So the 4 aims that we're focusing on are improving data collection and the digital infrastructure to collect emissions data. Because if we're trying to expand whole life cycle policy across the world, it's not just about collecting data, but it's about developing the infrastructure to collect data. As we don't all have the same pipelines, the same computer power, the same access to data, and even knowledge about how to use a spreadsheet. Like I was doing a life cycle assessment and people had, the meters cubed were actually meters squared. There's a lot of data requirements along the whole pipeline that need to be upskilled. Secondly, there's a lack of agreement on complex life cycle assessment methodologies. So that's the second aim. We've been discussing them all week. Thirdly, it's upskilling policymakers to consider embodied emissions and create a central place to find this information. So this is going to be either about what policies you could do, but as more and more policies are implementing, learn about the challenges in the implementation of those. So for example, we had how Netherlands and Denmark are implementing, and they're going to see how does it work? Will companies comply? And then if there's a space we can learn about this, then countries who haven't developed the legislation yet can learn and skip that learning process. So there's place for leapfrogging when you're a bit further behind. And fourthly, diversify the voices working on whole life cycle policies and standards in the built environment. In the moment, the standards are built by the West for the world. And we're, again, here a group of people who want to be speaking to the world, but we're really just speaking to people who are already very aware. And so the aim of this is to try and bring people to this room or similar rooms to upskill, but also just learn and see how we're learning differently. A really good example for me is often, I was talking with a concrete expert from Germany who couldn't understand how someone on a construction site might not know the exact mix of the concrete and not be able to track that. When in loads of countries, you see building workers not even have health and safety gear, let alone will they will be able to track the as-built emissions across 19 indicators. So we don't often know what we don't know. So I don't even want to assume, but I think we just need to try and aim for that. So through this whole life cycle policy coalition, we're trying to create a place into which we can pour funding to enable these 4 aims and also group existing initiatives. So we've got these 4 aims. We've got all these organizations. What we've done is mapped activities. So it's actually a massive spreadsheet, but it doesn't look very nice on a slide. So instead, you have a lot of pretty logos. These are the initiatives that we're aware of, are part of the GlobalABC, are part of these different groups themselves. And we've mapped what people are doing so you can find out. So for example, on improving data collection, the Carbon Leadership Forum is doing a lot of work on benchmarking in the US. Then there's an international initiative called GLOBE, which is trying to build an international database of whole life cycle assessments. There's Building Transparency, which is trying to expand its model to other countries. There's the IDDI, which is trying to develop a baseline for collecting data in 27 different countries. And there's the Lifecycle Initiative, who is developing a database of all the databases of embodied carbon data. So that's just a few examples of all these initiatives, and we're trying to bring those together. And I can go through each of these. I can tell you about what all these initiatives are doing, but the aim is that everybody would be able to find that out very easily through this one place. The number of countries we can currently reach through this network is over 50 countries of practitioners, influencers through here. So it's a place, a portal to reach others. What we aim to do is amplify, not always do new things. But we're not just a talking shop. We also produce outputs. But we're very slow at doing it. So last year we had our first workshops. On the top here, you can see the events, and then you'll see the outputs and what we aim to be the outcomes of what we produce. Because in the end, to do something, you need to have people, you need to put resource, you need to put time. So we're focusing on specific things. The first is publish a global review, which Harry discussed today. We're going to gather a review from all the members of the Whole Life Cycle Policy Coalition and you attending here today, and publish that. The second thing we're going to do is, over the next few months, produce 10 recommendations for the buildings breakthrough. So France is gathering 100 construction ministers in March to discuss how to decarbonize buildings and announce the building breakthrough and the action plan. We're aiming to produce 10 recommendations on whole life carbon. So as a whole life cycle policy coalition, we've developed a task force to produce these recommendations, and we'll be also sending this out for review the same way as we're sending it out for review for the whole life cycle, for the bigger report. And you can see the ambition. So the aim is we're not going to create an event. We're just going to, like here, Nino has organized this event. And so it's about tagging, amplifying things. You know, every time you want to create an international event, you're trying to reach the same organization. So it's a place where you can reach all these organizations without having to yourself know every single email address. So yeah, that's it really. Thanks for your attention, and yeah, we'll probably discuss a lot more